Welcome back to Shannons Club TV, where we reflect on the most significant cars from Australian roads and in competition.
In each episode, we look back on the defining factors that made our feature car stand out. We'll also meet a proud owner and get the latest market trends from the Shannons auctions team.
So let's kick off with the mid-engine Japanese two-seater that set a new benchmark for supercar refinement. The first generation Honda NSX.
The Honda NSX is thus far the only Japanese mid-engined supercar. From the start, journalists couldn't resist calling it Honda's Ferrari. Honda's aim was not in fact to build its version of a Ferrari 328, but rather to create the most sophisticated modern sports car in the world. With its transversely mid-mounted, naturally aspirated quad camshaft 3-litre V6, double wishbone suspension front and rear, specially formulated Yokohama tyres and widespread use of aluminium, the NSX was a pure machine. Its major target market was the US, where it was sold as the Acura NSX, but Honda was also determined to show its absolute competitiveness with the European makers. Mark, was it inevitable that the NSX would go racing?
Oh, I think so, particularly in Japan, where it's almost compulsory for high-performance models to prove their worth on the racetrack, which it did, of course, in Japanese GT racing, but also at the Le Mans 24-hour, and even Mount Panorama Bathurst, which I'll get to a bit later on.
In Australia, Honda's unique status as a mainstream manufacturer had been established by the 1973 Civic and 1977 Accord, but even the memory of the radical little chain-driven S600 could not have prepared us for the delightful surprise of the NSX. Indeed, here was Honda's first rear-wheel drive car since the S800. If the company's luxury Legend sedan and coupe had consolidated Honda's position as the prestige Japanese car company, the NSX took this supremacy to a higher plane again. I have no doubt it got Ferrari's attention too. With weight distribution of 43 to 57, the car was very willing to respond to steering inputs without being nervous like an air-cooled Porsche 911. No lesser driving genius than Ayrton Senna had crucial input into the NSX's sublime dynamics. The ultra-smooth and rev-happy, naturally aspirated 210 kilowatt 3-litre V6 with VTEC variable camshaft timing technology allowed the NSX to sprint to 100 in 5.6 seconds and run the 400 metres in 14 flat, supercar territory in 1990. The interior was beautifully designed and build quality was superb. But surprise and delight details like Ferrari's trademark exposed gate gear shift were lacking. The Honda was the world's only everyday supercar, a term which would have been an oxymoron before the NSX drove into view. You could drive your child to school before heading to Mount Panorama to compete in the James Hardy 12-hour. Mark, why do you think that no other Japanese maker has so far created a car like the NSX?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, isn't it? I wonder if it was because it was just so close to perfection. It would have been hard to top, particularly given the input of a Formula One legend. The first generation Honda NSX did not possess the raw Italian passion of a Ferrari or Lamborghini. However, Japan's first mid-engine supercar, which raced with success in Japan, at Le Mans and Mount Panorama at Bathurst, featured a unique element in its DNA that no other car could match: Ayrton Senna. The brilliant Brazilian, who won 3 Formula One World Championships in Honda-powered cars, convinced company engineers to stiffen the NSX's all-aluminium body by up to 50% and, with other test drivers, helped to refine its suspension tuning during pre-production testing. The substantial success enjoyed by the NSX in Japanese GT racing, in which it won numerous driver and team championships, and at Le Mans in the production-based GT2 category, did, in its own unique way, pay tribute to the Formula One great who played a pivotal role in its creation. John, Ayrton Senna owns several NSXs for his personal use, which, to me is arguably the greatest endorsement you could have for that car.
I think it probably is. And I imagine that he was such a passionate person.
And such a perfectionist.
A perfectionist. I imagine that he was actually very proud of the role he played in that car.
Yeah, I think he would have been.
Yes.
But isn't it interesting when you look back at it now through a collector's eyes? Two of the greatest Japanese performance cars of that era, the NSX and the Nissan GTR. If you offered a collector, which one do you want? It'd be interesting to see which one they'd choose.
And you think about how different the Nissan GTR and the Honda NSX were from each other. And think too about the Porsche 911.
Yeah, the 911.
Even the Japanese have never copied the 911. So there you've got three cars at the pinnacle of the performance world, if you like. The 911, the GTR and the NSX. And they're all utterly different from each other.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Yeah, what an era. Wow. It was no surprise to see a Honda NSX entered in the annual James Hardy 12-hour production car race at Bathurst in 1993, when it was billed as the Battle of the Supercars, with Mazda, Nissan, Lotus and Porsche all fronting with their finest high-performance thoroughbreds. Headlining the lone NSX entered by Ross Palmer was world motorcycle champion Wayne Gardner, who, having recently retired from two-wheeled racing, was in the early stages of a second career on four. Having qualified on the second row of the grid, there were doubts the exotic Honda would take its place in the race after Gardner suffered a fearful high-speed crash during final practice. However, the Never Say Die TAFE smash repair team would hear nothing of it, as a team of apprentices under Tony Warriner and Clive Weiss launched a marathon 36-hour rebuild which, miraculously, saw the badly damaged car repaired just in time for the race. Despite clutch problems, the Gardner-Palmer NSX finished a fighting third outright behind a pair of twin-turbo Mazda RX-7 works cars. Proof that Honda's supercar could cut it with some of the world's finest performance cars on one of the world's toughest racetracks. Other great episodes of Shannons Club TV are available to view anytime on the club website.
Hi everyone, Mario's my name. This is our Honda NSX 1995 model. It's the Series 2, 3-litre mid-engine car in original condition. As you see the car, it's showroom standard. Grand Prix white with the black top. Everything's original equipment inside and out. Even the rims are in original condition. There's no scuff marks. And this particular one is chassis number 3. The interior is based on a jet fighter plane, 360-degree view. A large, wide open dashboard, windscreen. It's a 3-litre mid-engine VTEC engine. Puts out 201 kilowatts of power at 7,000 revs. I've got the original toolkit, owner's manual, and all the books that came with it. It does 0 to 100 in 7.1 seconds. We had the opportunity through the Charity Drive Day organisation to partake in their event down at Phillip Island Racetrack. Shannons were one of the sponsors of the event, which was fantastic. To say it was bred for the racetrack is an understatement. Very good balance through the corners, down the main straight. She was going like a dream. We've been a Shannons customer for many years. We've got all our family cars with them, together with the NSX. In fact, my time with Shannons goes back to the mid-80s when I personally knew Robert Shannon. We haven't made a claim with Shannons yet, but I've got no doubt that they would look after it. My son and I have got no intentions of selling the car. It's a classic supercar that's come out of Japan from Honda. The car itself will stay in the family and I'll pass it on to my son.
Well, Shannon's National Auctions Manager Chris Borobon has dropped by to bring us up to speed on the first generation Honda NSX. Welcome to the show, mate.
Hey, Mark. Hi. Hey, John.
Welcome, Chris. It was quickly called Honda's Ferrari, but in many respects, the NSX was actually better than a Ferrari, wasn't it?
It's a lovely car. I think it's, I think we've seen what the car's actually done over the last number of years, and very sought after by collectors today still. And it's quite interesting how many original owners of a car actually still own those cars today.
Is that right?
Yeah.
How is it perceived amongst the traditional supercar set? When we talk about traditional, we mean generally Italian, Ferrari, Lamborghini. What's the acceptance or perception of this Japanese car?
Good question. It plays an interesting part in the marketplace, and I think
And a unique part, isn't
quite
it?
unique.
Yeah.
It wasn't your traditional Ferrari buyer that would go out and buy a Honda NSX.
So they never would have been interested, would
Well,
they?
they couldn't have coped with all that reliability.
And refinement.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think the car has done extremely well over the years, and we've seen it obviously grow from the 3-litre into later on the 3.2
Yep.
and the 6-speed gearbox. And,
And the bigger brakes. And
and
develop.
But they're quite a unique car, and the styling was really good. They got it right, and from my point of view, probably slightly underpowered.
Yeah.
That's
But
probably the only.
that is interesting, because when the car came out, I was always like, I had a V6, and it was a beautiful V6.
Yeah.
There's no
Beautiful,
denying that.
jewel of an engine.
But if it had come out with, say, a V8, a V10, or a V12, do you think the general perception of the car would have been hotter? Like, people would have thought, wow, like, take it up a notch.
Yeah.
It's perceptions are powerful things, aren't
Yeah,
they?
it is, isn't it? I think it probably suited a lot of drivers, because I think a lot of the drivers that jumped into the NSX were probably people that maybe previously had Honda Legends or those type of cars.
Yeah.
And
They say that a great car is a car where the chassis feels it can always use more engine. And I did a comparison test. We had an RX-7 twin turbo and the NSX and a bunch of other Japanese sports cars. By sheer chance, all of them are red. And the RX-7 had run away and hide from the NSX on performance. But in terms of handling and drivability and almost everything else, the NSX was just such a beautiful,
That's where you want it
superb
to
car.
be.
It just cried out for a bit more power. Yeah.
Well, I think what it did do, though, is that if you are a driver, you're able to actually really push the car to its limits, and actually
It doesn't bite you.
Yeah, it doesn't bite you. You actually
right.
were able to get the most out of it.
Whereas the RX-7 would bite you.
That's right, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, they're available with manual and automatic transmission. How is that falling out in terms of the collectible cars? What are we seeing more of?
It's interesting because we do probably see more automatics come up on the market.
That surprises me.
Yeah.
But I think the true enthusiast really wants that manual box in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would think so.
Yeah. So I think it's you've got different buyers there, but I think for the driver that wants to take it out for the nice Sunday run, with their mates, and I think they're really after the manual box in the car.
Okay, so if someone's looking for one, obviously the post 97 model with the 3.2 engine, the 6-speed manual, that's very desirable.
Yeah, very desirable,
But is any first generation NSX considered collectible? Like, if you can get a really good one with good books, grab it.
Absolutely, I think any of the first generation cars, whether the 3-litre version or the 3.2, are very sought after in a manual form. I think that's probably the pegging.
So the manual is the big differentiator.
Right.
That's the place to aim.
And again, Australian delivery, and with good service history, and generally speaking, I mean, a lot of them have probably, you can find something with 100,000 Ks or just a bit over. Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, thanks for joining us, Chris.
Great.
And remember, you can keep up to date with all the latest Shannons auctions news on the Shannons Club website. If you want a lasting memory of the Honda NSX in competition, check out the huge archive at autopics.com.au. John, it's interesting reflecting on the Honda NSX. I think for a long time it has probably been underappreciated, but now it's really starting to come into its own, isn't it?
And I think what people are appreciating is that it's such a pure machine. I mean, you think about the Nissan GTR, by contrast, people would fiddle with those, put big exhausts on, bigger turbos, bigger wheels, whatever. But the NSX is a car you'd be loath to tamper with, I think.
Well, as I say, the relentless pursuit of perfection in developing that car in the first place.
Yes.
You have to wonder, apart from questions over power output, where could you improve that car?
Indeed.
Yeah. And considering when it was conceived and when it was built, it still remains incredibly modern by today's standards.
It certainly does.
Which says plenty about Honda's engineering, doesn't it?
It does indeed.
I think Ayrton Senna said Honda was the best company in the world, and that he really knew what he was talking about.
No, he did, indeed.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
We hope you've enjoyed reflecting on the sublime Honda NSX first generation. We look forward to your company next time on Shannons Club TV. Bye for now.